Okay, you guys. Great, it's going. So today we're going to talk about two things. Somebody asked me about the girls who have been doing stuff to men's food and their minds and the conferences that were being held. So someone came to me, a girl came to me and asked me to use my spiritual gifts to help her with something that was attacking her, some guy she dated. But in truth, I don't know why she doesn't have spiritual gifts. She just pretends to. So maybe that's why. Like, she didn't make a deal for some. She literally has none. She's just evil. So what she did was, this is a married woman. And what she did was start a Young Living oil business. And her whole intent in starting that business was to train women to do what she had done, which is be young, wait for tourists to come to her country, and then trick that man into a relationship with her, and then start casting spells on him and food and, you know what, magic in the bedroom. And so she did that long enough to him that she was able to use his millions, use his money to make money, her own money, like $24,000 a month, but save that and keep stealing money from him. And she called it the long game. And what she did was she accepted that she was always going to do this to him until he didn't let her. Then she started figuring out other ways that she wanted to make money. And in trying to do that, she figured she would use her Young Living business to teach other women to say they were selling Young Living oils. And then by selling the Young Living oils, they could use those things to cast their spells. But she wasn't doing it so they would have supplies. She was doing it to get more women to come in, right? So more women to join under her team, teach them how to do this, make them rich men's wives, cast spells on them, do spells on their food, manipulate them energetically, and summon things. This literally was what she taught at every Young Living class that she had, and at conferences that she held around the world under the guise of telling people she was training them to have their own independent business as women. But the independent business that she was really telling them was how to harm men. I don't know how on earth she thought she would come to me as a client and tell me that some guy was attacking her and she was just innocent. When, of course, as soon as I started to remote view to try to help her, God showed me the guy. But then the guy started saying, you don't know what she is, not who she is. The guy kept saying, you don't know what she is. Don't help her. It's not me. It's not me. I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting people, right? And so he kept saying that. And in him saying that, I realized that she was totally lying. But I didn't know the details of what she was lying about, because he still felt like he was some kind of spiritual violator, right? So now I had one person claiming they're the victim, of another person who's saying he's not the villain, but he feels and looks like the villain energetically. So what I did was I blocked him out, closed the session, said I need to, follow up, because I usually do 3 to 5 sessions and fix everything that's ever been wrong for my clients, or go check for something for them for business. So my clients say I usually make them millions or save them millions of dollars, right? And I didn't know that people were doing this to men. I would never want a man I had to do that too. How crazy is that? Why would you try to force someone to love you? And for the long game, they would marry these guys and have kids. So then part 2, we get to literally, I'm at a meeting with her and her friends for the long game. My students chime in, right? Because I've been doing this 28 years. So when my students chime in, they say, no matter what she says, she's the Wicked Witch in Snow White, right? Which gives us 19 things we then automatically know. The first thing we automatically know is she's someone with no powers, but she's evil. That she is jealous and seeks to harm chosen ones. And that she's after some king for his money. And she's willing to destroy men, women, and children to do that. You got it? So that let me know who she was, but she was still pretending like she was something else. So she went on to do a live, and she couldn't even tell anybody anything about energy, anything about energetics, nothing about church, nothing about metaphysics. She couldn't tell people anything. So she was saying that she's their guru, and that's why she was going live. And so then it got even more crazy, which I didn't even think it could, but it did, because it turned out part 2 after the live was the Young Living meeting. After the live was the Young Living meeting with her higher ups, right? The people higher up, basically the people at the top make the money. And then when you get to the top, they tell you how to trick the people at the bottom to think they're going to make the money. So that's where she was. And we were at one of their houses. And then I saw the family pictures. And she had done the same using of the Young Living oils to do the same junk to the guy, right? That the other girl had done. So the girl who initially presented herself to be, oh, she's a victim and she needs help, right? Once she did that and I went to that meeting, I realized she instead had a whole bunch of predators. She was making a whole bunch of predators and going to other countries and teaching other girls how to do this. And they were all having these meetings with all of the labeling, all the decorations, all the advertising, where that come and learn how to be a distributor or a manager for Young Living oils. So I was so shocked, because what that meant was there were so many guys who were being harmed by this group of women, plus all the women they trained, right? So when you went to the train, you might have been in Sri Lanka, you might be in China, you might be in Taiwan, you might be in the States, in a destination kind of city, like a vacation destination city. And what they would do is they literally would train these women how to do this stuff to men. And these weren't women who, like my clients that were survivors. Some of them, they walk down the street and you can tell that they are a magical person or a part of part of some community, right? But these girls were, but all of their meetings are not about the sex product.
أطنط
Meetings are about the scams that they're doing. So they feel
أطنط
kind of like mean girls, but they don't
قلب
think mean.
أطنط
They look
بحبك
like
أطنط.
evil, just evil walking. Got it?
أيوة أنا هخش أنام دلوقتي، يلا
And it
سلام.
turns out that's what they are. So they're just purely evil. But then they're married to affluent men of other races. And when they do the long game class, you, they teach them to keep them and do stuff to their food and, their mind, bodies, and soul, basically, until you have two kids. Then that's when you start cheating with other guys, right? To get your business ahead. And then you do that to these guys, right? So everything they planned was just really, really, really evil, right? Like it was shockingly evil. And the fact that Young Living was what all of them worked for, and they were using those products, those seminars, those parties, those marketing materials, those graphics, and the MLM format in order to establish these things to hurt men who had gone to other countries thinking they're going to find a docile wife. Yeah. So that's what they said they're going to do, right? So they got tricked by, yeah. So that's what they said they're going to do, right? So they got tricked by, I hate to say it, right? But they were judgmental to find women in their own country who might have a mind of their own. Maybe they want to have a business or something like that. But what they ended up with was women that didn't even have a soul of their own. They literally found women with no soul. And those women with no souls started a business using an. I refused, of course, to do business with her or them. And my students had already, they when they view whether they, because I teach them connect to God, connect to source, use your soul's first language, right, which is asking God stuff you want to know. And then in doing that, what happens is they saw what I taught them. Spent my childhood in the labs, so I already know how to get the details. I'm built that way. I was born that way. And then I mastered the gifts, right? So in doing that, my calling from all around the world just freaked out. Like, who are you helping? What is going on? This is right. And I'm like, it's okay, you guys. I already saw through her madness because she was so narcissistic that she had the nerve to tell me what was going on. You see? So she had the nerve to pretty much brag about what she was doing to men, thinking that somehow they would, and this is any narcissist, try to create enough strife in your life so that you'll sell your soul, pick a different team, or choose something that you know is wrong in the world. Got it? So this woman, that wasn't enough for her. She then decides that she has all these women behind her. She's making all this MLM money. She stole so much money from her husband at the time that she decided she was going to take the house and the kids and divorce him because she played the long game. She cheated. She done all this stuff. So she was done. And that's what they call it, the long game, right? So they teach them 9 different things to do to harm men. And that pretty much also destroys children because they're just evil. Well, guess what? As I am making sure that I have nothing else to do with her or anyone like her, right? Think energetic patterns. That's a different, I'll teach you guys that. But basically, every soul has an energetic signature. That's why I've never been without God or Jesus, because I never make deals with or talk to anyone or take advice from any other kind of thing that says, hey, we can help you with that. It's like, nope, I got God and Jesus, so I don't need your help. So thank you so much, right? Other times it's like, as long as you're not trying to be in my life or in my body, I'll listen and help my client. So how about this? Her husband comes on a remote view and a clairvoyant meditation, right? Always just plug into God, say, God, what do I need to be able to help these souls? That kind of thing, right? My gifts were already on when I was born. So I didn't do anything to make a deal or anything ungodly, anything like that, right? So my frequency matches what I do. I feel like the highest frequency because I've never done anything to be less than good, whole, and I helped everybody no matter what they did, right? No matter who they are, no matter how dark, how light, how good or how evil, right? If I was their doctor or their coach or their teacher, I didn't judge them for what they do. I didn't even tell them not to do what they do. I just told them what it's like to be soul and the choices that they had, right? So keeping that in mind, I am shocked out of my mind when the husband comes and says he's old now. He's not really old, but what he said was, I'm old now. I didn't see her correctly. By the time I did, it's too late. But at least try not to let her use the spells to take my house, because my children's memories are in my house. This is so sad, you guys, right? So he literally says, please make sure that if, because he thought, I guess they'd been doing so much stuff to him, his soul was starting to realize it. So what he wanted was, if I was one of her friends there to do some more stuff, like had been happening to him, he wanted me to please have enough mercy to not let her win the house, because he could still walk around and have the memories of his children's childhood, to not feel so stupid, because he said she'd always been this evil creature and that meant his whole marriage was a lie and that all his life was for nothing. But if he kept the house, he wouldn't feel so stupid, because he could remember that his kids were real, like they had existed and they were real. But if he had to do like a lot of men do when they get tricked by evil serpent gold diggers, then what he wanted was to console himself with the memories. Now, since that person, and of course, I assured his soul, I healed his soul. God showed me how to help with the broken heart and his meridians, and give him enough peace that he didn't lose his faith. He didn't lose his soul. He was okay, right? And then, of course, I never helped her achieve any of her goals. And I've met 9 women like that. And people keep asking me, like when we started Did You Buy a Mannequin? It was because I met somebody that I loved who that had happened to twice. And it was so cold blooded that the first time it happened, he didn't figure out till the end, because these women make an announcement at the end after they stole millions of dollars from you that they never loved you, that it was always a game, right? This comes out of their mouths because they're evil narcissistic. So guess what happened next? What happened next was really weird, because when I tried to make sure I wasn't around anybody like that, and then they started trying to cost me money so that I would come and work with them because they wanted my name, my reputations, and my gifts attached to them who had no gifts, but a whole bunch of money and an audience. They didn't have anything to offer the audience except for how to do those evil things. And so they wanted somebody with some actual spiritual gifts to give them some credibility. And my degrees and credentials to try to help more, right? So they were trying to give themselves credibility because they had no degrees, no gifts, just evil and this way to scam the dudes, and then the Young Living business that was making $24,000 a month. So they figured they would do that and all would be well. And then they found out that I was not taking part in it. So like narcissists do, right? I went to a church a couple years ago, like literally a couple, like 1.5 to 2. And there was a woman that was so racist and so narcissistic with such low self-esteem. On the first day she met me, she tried to dominate, use put downs, like she was just trying to do all kind of stuff. And when she met with stoicism, me giving absolutely no energy and nothing, then she decided that she should add more lies, right? Because a narcissist doesn't gaslight because they think somebody's going to believe them. They're doing an energetic manipulation for people to believe them. People believe them because they're manipulating the person's energy to make them believe them, right? But the lies they tell are because, thank you, because they're not strong enough to manipulate you and get you to do what they want and control you themselves with their energy. Hopefully that makes sense to you, right? So a narcissist basically decides that you're too strong for them. You're too gifted for them. You are so far out of their league when it comes to intellect, power, spiritual gifts, frequency, right? Because what do? I always say God and Jesus. Church acts hecka stupid sometimes. That girl at church was so racist that she lied, act like a narcissist. People were yelling, attacking, all this kind of stuff. Do you know that it's been about 2 years, and every single time I get LinkedIn updates, she has checked on my LinkedIn. She's still looking at my LinkedIn. That's how crazy the demons attached to narcissists are, right? I'm somebody she met one time, but I'm somebody that her low self-esteem and her no spiritual gift having self, it's like, if she's that desperate, why does she just stop pretending? Because she's so evil anyway, right? She's evil from her deeds. So she transmuted into just a straight up evil demon. So when you look at it that way, then people start to try to figure out, oh, why won't they stop? Because they're evil. That's why we stop saying, oh, they're evil, they're mean, they have tendencies. And God just was like, they're demons. If you teach your students they're demons, you can keep your students safer. Right? And I have helped enough magical people to know the difference between a deal, gifts, made, sent, hurt, right? Manipulations, all that kind of stuff that Chinese medicine will show you, or energy medicine will show you. But then church starts saying that Chinese medicine was evil, but that's because the practitioner, right? The person who's working on you, it could be your massage therapist, but they forgot to mention that. It could be your neighbor. It could be your best friend who brings you cookies, right? It can be any soul that is not a high frequency soul that's pretending to be close to you while envying you, hating you, or trying to orchestrate your demise, right? And it depends on who they are. They like to see you suffer. So they sell their soul with every deed they do that makes you suffer. So as they were going and they were doing these things, guys started coming to me about women doing these things. So that's how God always orchestrates what you need. So you might say, why would he send such evil people? It's like, I have clients that are evil, but they're evil by choice, right? So my clients that are evil by choice, we don't remove the evil from them. They might have been born into a family that's their practice, or that's what they do, right? They might have had so much abuse that they did that. They chose that. So I have my free will and I use it for what I want. My clients have their free will and they use it for what they want. And I learned very early on, after my daughter's kidnapping, that it didn't matter if people were at church or your friends, or right, if they had always envied you. When something horrific happens to you, they're happy. They're literally happy, because the evil that's always been inside of them towards you, when they could have made the same choices, they might not be born with the same gifts, but they could have made the same choices. Well, of course, people do stuff so that you won't make the choices, meaning they create hardship, they create harm, they create abuse, they create betrayal, they create heartache, they create poverty, right? They create circumstances so that you will choose to be evil because you're mad because you don't have your gifts. But if you're born into a family that's what you do, then you have the right to be evil if you want to be evil. Everybody has the right to practice or do whatever they choose. But if you're at a church and you're racist, you're the devil. So why are you talking bad about Satanists or Luciferians? Leave them alone, because you are more of a devil than they call. You are evil, and they worship evil, and they may get transmuted over time because of actions, but so did you. Every time you were racist, every time you were sexist, every time you were unkind, every time you smiled and carried your Bible and harmed someone, right? So very often what I teach my students is your first job on the planet. Sometimes I start with your only job, right? Depends on what God tells me to tell them. So I either say it's your first job on the planet or it's your only job on the planet, to be able to hear and talk to God and know that it's God and not something else, right? That's your job. And then once you do that, that gives you the real discernment. It gives you the spiritual gift that says, don't turn right here. Don't turn left here. Get off at this stop. Don't get off at that stop. Park your car and walk 10 blocks, right? Because it all makes sense within the universe to do that. Meaning there is a reason that is a blessing for you, or you're going to be somebody's blessing or gift by listening. Well, that's the same thing that they're making deals for. But the thing is, something on the middle or lower rungs tells them things that they don't know or notice. Got it? The difference is that thing is only doing it to be inside of their body and to be inside Earth, right? To be able to walk down the street, to be able to drink hot cocoa, to be able to have a cup of coffee, to be able to, right? They want to have that experience, but they are not supposed to be here because they're always doing chaos and wreaking havoc. So when people are like that, so this girl's at church claiming, oh, she's Christian, you'll never hear me say that I'm Christian. You see, I was raised in church. I listen to God and Jesus. I read my Bible every day. I before the wildfires, I had 10 different Bibles because I like historical Bibles. And then I like special edition made Bibles, like Bibles with all the pictures from the Sistine Chapel or all Black Jesus, and all the whole Bible stories are just all the Bible stories are oil painting prints, and everybody's Black or everybody is in the Renaissance, right? So I like things like that. And then I like old Bibles where the words haven't been changed, so they still mean something as far as frequency and vibration, as opposed to the word gets watered down 100 times. When you're standing and reading it, if you are in trouble or something's trying to challenge your sovereign right as a soul to choose your own free will, then those words that have been changed 100 times don't mean the same thing that the other words meant, don't have the same power, or they mean other things. So then what you're saying is not strong enough to beat what you're trying to beat, literally, right? And in going through that, you're standing there going, oh, maybe this doesn't work. And the whole time they're lying, telling you crazy stuff like God's not real, right? I've heard that from people like, I don't know, 15,000 times. But turns out every time they were wrong and it did work, right? So what happens instead is they're saying, thank you. They know that God works. So they're not saying God's not real so that you believe what they believe. They believe God is real. They know Jesus is real. But they don't want you to believe it, because then you might call those names that make them go, and they want to stay in your life, in your body, or creating strife. Or if somebody's bloodline, they're just being themselves, right? So they are not the ones who will walk up and say it, okay? They're not the people who will talk to you like that. They're not the things that will talk to you like that. They're not the witches, the warlocks, the druids. They're not going to talk to you like that. Because one thing they all know is God is real and Jesus is real. But if they can convince you that they're not, by church acting crazy and racist, like this crazy narcissistic girl, still looking up, trying to cause more trouble, right? Every time somebody does that to you, they are transmuting their frequency to the demonic, to the satanic. It does not matter if they ever make a deal. It does not matter. You're judging people for having black fingernails, right? You're judging people that you think you look. And God showed me when I was 11 that not judging means don't judge anybody. Got it? That it was like a target. Like, I grew up with archery and stuff like that. So it was like an archery target. In the center of the target is the bullseye. Those are the people that are like that you don't see, because they don't have black fingernails. They don't have, the goth or whatever hair or tattoos, right? They don't have those things. The ones that are really, really, really worshiping and honoring everything the devil, Lucifer, or Satan, because the Satanists and the Luciferians are in a complete disagreement about who's really the boss of the dark. And so what happens with them is, if you see them walking down the street, right, then the ones you're judging aren't the ones that are doing all the backdoor stuff. The ones you're judging are not the ones that are the most evil. They're like maybe the foot soldiers, or they made a deal with some lower level evil, right? So these girls that are doing the Young Living stuff and teaching these women to do this kind of stuff, they made deals, right? They made deals and their deeds transmuted them more. So I am where I wanted you to see. So this is what we do. You got to dig it up. Look at that. And then shake off the dust. Then dump it in the river, the ocean, the Holy Spirit, the blood of Jesus, whatever it is, whatever your practice is. But there's stuff underground and there's dirt that is turned to dust. So there's no way that you would see it all, which is why you usually go to somebody who can. The problem is in teaching church that a lot of people who were wizards or tatas or whatever, different practices, right? So some were tatas high level, some were ex-Satanists, ex-witches, ex-warlocks. Well, about 10 years ago, they decided they're going to start teaching church about demons. So this kind of demon and that kind of kingdom and this and that, right? So church started talking about demons way more than they were talking about anything good. The church would hardly even mention Jesus' name, which, by the way, if you mention them to something evil while it's trying to tell you God doesn't, just keep saying God or Jesus over and over, and they'll explode or they will run or they'll start screaming because he's coming, like screaming in fear, like a rock concert, because he's coming, because they knew it was real, but they know that if they can make you stop saying it, then maybe they get to stay and mess with you, because when he comes, they have to leave, which was the whole point of the 10 Commandments. It was never about controlling you. Google the 10 Commandments. If you never read the Bible, just Google the 10 Commandments. Save yourself the torture you might experience if you go to a church that's not talking to God and only talking to each other, or if they're extremely racist. I always say give church a chance, because somebody there believes and serves the highest frequency, which is love. So what happens is, good morning. What happens is when people go places and do things, they end up with a lot of energetic parasites, right? Sometimes you can look at people and they look at you and they just have such sadness in their eyes. Not because they're sad because of the parasite. The parasite is sad because it's trapped in that body and it wants you to give it food. So there was a woman walking around Yoga Festival, and what she kept saying, like over and over with tears in her eyes, walking all slow and depressed, she kept saying, I need energy. I need energy, right? Because the thing had completely taken over this vessel. So the 10 Commandments were made for you to have things to help you keep your vessel clean. Got it? To help you keep your vessel clean. It had nothing. Your vessel is your body, for those of you who don't have the vocabulary of saving so many lives and helping so many survivors. They had 70 different types of practices, and God told me to help them. I didn't help anybody God told me not to help, but I helped everybody God told me to help, no matter what kind of practice or magic, whatever they did, I still helped. Now, the first 15 years, I didn't even know because I didn't ask. I just helped. After 15 years, they told me, they were magical or Satanist or Luciferian or Wicca or voodoo, whatever they practiced. They started to tell me. And as they started to tell me, then what they did was, because they told me, so this is what parasites look like. Just moved seats and made a beeline to try to be near high frequency, because they're insane and they're driven, right? So if you're mean, if you're cruel, you transmute yourself. If you're somebody that hurts people of your own race, you already transmuted. So something transmuted you. And then every time you do that kind of thing, whether it's lying, cheating, stealing, whether or not it's drugs, whether or not it's summoning, whatever you did, at least usually somebody knows that if you summon, there's a probability of something attaching to you. And when people say that they're casting spells on you, what they're trying to do is attach their energy or a defaming or lower vibrational energy to you because they're jealous of your frequency, right? Or they think that they can siphon it and bottle it up or something, right? But what they do is they just get darker and darker and darker. And then they get more and more angry. Like the girl at that church who lied, who was cruel, who was aggressive, who got physical, who pushed her negative energy. It's called, some cultures call it she, hin, ye, meaning talking in a way that you're opening up people's spiritual space, the meridians in their body, right? Everybody has meridians, everybody has chakras, whether you use them or not. If somebody's evil and jealous and hateful, complete narcissist, complete demon, whatever it is, right? And they're using that, or they were taught to use that from childhood, they will insist on talking to you. They will call you on the phone 19 times. They will come to your house and bang on the door because they want to talk to you, because they are so poorly skilled that they need to physically talk to you to do their attacks. And so it's like they lose their mind if they lose the ability to energetically interact with you face to face or by phone. That's why you'll get phone calls from other countries. You'll get phone calls from China. You'll get phone calls from Japan. You'll get phone calls from Taiwan showing up on your phone because somebody here or wherever you live has hired someone there to try to use that ancient philosophy technique of opening up someone else's space and then pushing dark chi into it because they want to control your vessel and they can't. So it's like a little kid having a poopy fit, or kind of like if a group of people get together and do rituals on one innocent person constantly, because none of them have any powers except for the ones that evil they summon towards them. So they don't have natural gifts where you can just open up. That's why church taught that Chinese medicine is evil. I've been a Chinese medicine practitioner since 1997. Yes, you open up people, but you're supposed to open them up and take out the trash. And I fill them up with God, right? Jesus, the blood of Jesus. Most people, they're opening you up and they fill you up with their negative energy, like you're their recycling bin. So you're paying somebody to harm you and give you the trash, or they open you up, sip you up like a milkshake, then close you up empty so that you'll feel bad. And feeling bad, they're supposed to be healing you. So you go back to them so they can help you feel better. So they're just eating you. You're like their snack on a schedule. You see? So people that don't understand energy in that way don't want you to understand energy in that way. So you don't have a way to keep yourself protected. But if you use what everybody knows works, which is the blood of Jesus or the name Christ, right? They've been writing that since the 1300s and the 1500s for you to understand that's the one thing they found that works to remove it, other than you making a deal and getting a bigger evil to protect you from that evil, which just makes everybody more evil, right? That's what they used to say, an eye for an eye makes everybody blind. Because if you keep making a deal to beat them and they keep making a deal to beat you, then you make another deal to beat them and they make another deal, right? So
then you just be evil. Both of you are more evil, more evil, more evil, and just harming each other. My clients call that witch wars. My clients that are Christians call it going back into the ring, meaning they go to church, they believe God, they believe Jesus, then somebody at church is gossiping, somebody's lying, somebody scams somebody out of their inheritance or their savings, and this is somebody they're sitting at church with. I have to teach them God didn't do that so that they don't lose their faith, right? So that when something is trying to bother them, what they're able to still do then is realize that every single bad thing that happened to you only happened to get you to not call Christ, because that's the cleaner. Okay, and I don't mean that in a house cleaning way. I mean that in a old 1930s black and white movie, Humphrey Bogart kind of way. That's the cleaning crew. But they don't want you to believe the cleaning crew. But everybody of every religion knows that. But they may be some other type of religion because they want to send entities or beings to go bring them stuff. Right? So they taught you at church, you manifest. They taught you if somebody attacks you, send it back. That puts you ping pong game with them. Right? But the ping pong ball just keeps staying on the table. It just gets dirtier and dirtier every time you send it back because now you're playing their game instead of winning the game. That's the way it works. And so a lot of times people don't want you to have or access the knowledge of understanding how energy works because they don't want you to be able to close their energy out or not pollute your space. But if you had just mindlessly, right, just followed because you're supposed to follow and do the 10 commandments, they were designed to block out all the ways that things were getting in up until 1390, right? And then people weren't fully listening, and so they changed it in 1560 and 1510. They wrote two other versions so that you would understand what the things look like and what you're up against. Other versions so that you would understand what the things look like and what you're up against, and showed all the stuff that had just been walking down the street uncloaked and doing stuff to people. And people were so scared of the first one called the Geneva Bible. People were so scared in the reality of what had been proven by churches and magic worked together, right? And wrote these books to say, hey, these things are doing this. If you do this kind of magic, this thing is going to come and never give you your body back. It's not coming to help, right? So churches and magical communities, which is warlocks, wizards, right? They worked together in the 1500s to add all the information into the Geneva. The Geneva was so scary for some people when they read the things, right? That then the King James made a more palatable versions for you to not have all those pictures in your head about all those creatures and types of things. But now that we got tricked since the 1910s, it started in 1890 to teach you Bram Stoker's Dracula started trying to teach you about energy, and he put it in a story that was popular at the time, which was romantic fiction, right? They called it romantic fiction. It really was like Harlequins. It really was like romance novels with, all kind of things you're not supposed to do to protect your spiritual space. They wrote it in a book, and it's novels with, all kind of things you're not supposed to do to protect your spiritual space. They wrote it in a book, and then he put the monsters that show up if you do that stuff trying to, one, help people have that as an outlet by reading the book instead of taking on the monster. And then other people would have parties and they would read them. And so a lot of people don't know, like Mary Shelley, like Frankenstein, all those monsters with love stories attached, those people hung out together like a poet society, like a philosopher's soiree. They hung out together in groups and would tell these stories and make up these stories because they saw these real things in Victorian times. Because, of course, not enough people were listening to this is how you keep things out. And people kept doing harm to other people, making poverty, making ghettos, unkindness, mistreating children, old people. They kept doing stuff to rip people's spiritual space to make the things in the Geneva be able to exist and walk amongst the humans. And so the King James was like, if you just do these things, right? But then church started getting ego. Who's the boss? Who's what kind of boss? Who's the boss of that boss? Who gets to do what they want, right? So the more evil started to take over ego, right? So people weren't understanding that ego, right? So if you think you are just so spectacular, if you think, and I don't mean like high self-esteem, I mean, if you think being cruel behind the scenes in a secret dark room is your superpower, then the people that I know, whether it's the people I helped, my clients, or my friends that I made from helping those people, they consider you weak. Because if you have that, much power, then why are you hiding? And why are you using something else's power instead of your natural God-given power, universe-given, source-given power as soul? You already are born with power. Why do you think something always trying to convince you don't have any so they can use your vessel, right? So those answered all the questions that I've been presented with in the last 6 weeks. And I know that'll help a lot of people. And if you have more questions, you guys let me know. And I will be happy to help you and answer them for you as long as it's what God tells me to do. So, yes, some churches have been acting evil and straight up crazy. Yes, some Chinese medicine practitioners are evil. Yes, sometimes Christians, they're selling things at like Ross or the department store that people in the store may put negative energy, or maybe one of your guests that you think is your friend fills it with negative energy. But you already have a list of 10 things to do, and then it doesn't matter what any of those things do. That was the purpose of the 10 tips. And that also was the purpose of telling you that the 10 tips were just something trying to control you so that you'd fight back so nothing gets to control you. And in doing that, everything harmful has started to control 30% of the people, making it seem like it's everybody and everywhere, but it's really only about 30% of the people.